All right, good morning. Welcome in. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone. Streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. You can watch the show on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports. SEC Insider Hit this morning, presented by Eye Care Professionals, Dr. Kurt Jeffries. Eye Care Professionals. Blade-free LASIK and cataract surgery, Lakeland Drive, right off 55, right down from Smith Wills Stadium. Eye Care Professionals, Dr. Kurt Jeffries. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Our guests join us on the Miller Lite guest line. We welcome in Mike Detillier, LSU Saints insider, WWL Radio TV, New Orleans. Mike, let's start with LSU. If Joe Brady was Ed Orgeron's best hire in the history of his coaching career, is Bo Pelini, and it's early, and I know there was going to be some rebuild, but I don't think people thought maybe it was going to be this deep of a rebuild. But could Bo Pelini be his worst hire?
I always thought it was Matt Canada. Matt's system didn't fit anything that Ed wanted, and then it became a personal deal with him. So I always thought that was the worst hire they had. With Bo, it's an unusual offseason, to say the least. But what's disturbing is virtually every play there's a mental breakdown. And mental breakdowns, that all goes on coaching. And, it falls on your back. You're paying you over $2 million a year to fix it. And the Mississippi State game, you know what? You can understand, man. That happens. But now this is 2 out of 3 games where you see wide open receivers, guys not knowing where they should be and where they should, kind of trade off players. They got gashed in the running game by Missouri. We're talking about Missouri here. They got gashed. And so it's not going to be an easy fix. And it's something that you can hear in the voice of Ed that he really thought this defense would play big this year. There's no question. Because he told me a few times, man, listen, we got the talent here. We just got to piece it together. And nothing close has come together at all. And there's a lot of body language, too. You look at that football team, they play with no swagger. This was once, their wheelhouse, how they play defense. And it's not there. And it's not a quick fix either. You can talk about simplifying it and everything else. That part of confusion, and that's all about coaching, and coaching is teaching what you should do. That's a big red flag at this point.
Mike Detillier on the Miller Lite guest line talking LSU Tigers. We'll get to Saints here in just a second for our listeners. Mike, what if they go down to Florida this weekend and get beat by, double digits? I mean, where do you how I know he's celebrated as the national championship coach, so he's got a lot of chips and equity within the fan base, but if they get beat by 2 scores this weekend, how's that going to land in Louisiana?
Well, listen, he's catching it now. So, my thing is, Ed's got some cred here in what he's been able to piece together. I think the situation with Pelini might be a little bit different. But, again, something Pete Jenkins told me, and this had to be back in late February. And he told me, he said, Mike, I'm going to tell you something. And he said, just remember, it's the old ball coach. Pete's in his late 70s. He's coached forever. And still would. Had it not been for the COVID situation, he would be working with the Alabama defensive line because he was kind of a coach for hire. And he'd work with different programs. He'd work with the Cowboys. he's worked with at University of Alabama, his close relationship with Nick Saban. But one of the things he told me is, Mike, I'm telling you, some of the people who didn't like Ed are just waiting for him to fail so they can tell you I'm right, because they had to eat it last year. He said all season long they had to eat it and say, well, it wasn't Ed that pieced this together. It was so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. He said, mark my word, they waiting in the wings like an assassin to say I was right and it was just a one-time event. He said, I guarantee you they going to come out the woodwork the first time he loses a game or two. And he said, with that schedule and what he lost, he's going to lose more than a couple. I think back that February day today. That's exactly what's happening today. That, people who, he's not that good of a coach. He can't do this. He can't do that. Oh, now they stuck their head out. They've been hiding now for a year. But now they've stuck their head out to say, I told you he wasn't that good of a coach. And I think Pete's absolutely right. But Ed's got to fix this. It's on him. That's why they're paying you $6-7 million a year. Nobody cares about what you did a year ago. Come on, you got to turn the page and you got to move on with it. He's smart enough. He understands it. That comes with the pressures of winning it. And I've tried to tell a lot of the LSU fan base, what you saw at Alabama for the last, 10, 12 years, that ain't never going to be duplicated in our lifetime of what Nick has been able to do there. Sort of reload the gun every year.
Right.
And they come out, but people got, LSU's going to be the next one. No, there's only one of them that you're going to see like that in our lifetime. Only one. And just like what Belichick has done in the NFL with the Patriots, Nick has done at Alabama. There's going to be lulls in the program where it's not always going to be peaches and cream. And so you got to fight through the adversity. And these young players got to fight through it too.
That's true.
Ain't nobody care about what you did in high school.
That's for sure.
You a 4- and 5-star recruit, man. Well, you put that away. You playing in the SEC, Jack. It don't make any difference. So it falls on him, and he understands it. Truthfully, now he really understands it. Now, he's been told that all off season. All off season, he's been told it. Pete Carroll told him that. Jimmy Johnson told him that. Coach Pete Jenkins told him that. Everybody's told him the same. Ed, I'm telling you, it's just not going to be reload the gun. But Ed's always the type of guy, that, no, we ain't going to blink and everything else. And all that's true. But now the reality has set in that it's not going to be that easy to come back from that. There's a lot of work to be pieced together here. And now you're on the road against Florida. And a few years back, he gets his clock cleaned against Troy. And, man, you talk about the wolves were hollering back then for him. They go to Gainesville, and it's the hottest game I've ever been in my entire life. I mean, it is humid and hot. And they end up winning that in a game that nobody thought they would win. He's in a similar spot this week where, defensive coordinators are under siege in the SEC. Man, Larry Grantham Grantham is under siege. Pete Golding at Alabama, Pelini at LSU.
Yes.
And, again, it's an unusual offseason of what happened. But also to a reality check, and I've talked to him about this 2 or 3 times. He doesn't totally. He agrees to a certain extent, but not fully. I think he may eventually come around to it. I think it's a talent issue, and what I think you're seeing is the remnants of 7-on-7 has hit now the SEC. The best conference in college football is seeing it. The lack of pass rushers that you don't see anymore. You play these teams today with all this spread out offense, and they got quarterbacks that can sling it. Even these red shirt kids, who Missouri's got, and Basilak, who, man, he was impressive, man. For a red shirt freshman, showed a lot of poise. He's one of the few bright spots Missouri actually has, to be honest. And if I asked you who's the top pass rusher in the SEC, you'd have a long pause to think about who that guy is.
Right.
If I ask you who's the top pass rusher in college football, you'd have a long pause to think about it. Those guys aren't out there anymore, and in numbers. They're playing wide receiver and tight end. I see it. I see it at the camps. I wrote an article 4 years ago about it, that I could see it back then, and now it's coming through. And for the biggest programs in college football, for the Floridas, for the Alabamas, for the LSUs, you watch Matt Corral, he got harassed a little bit, but basically he sat back there and threw darts against Alabama. You watch A&M with Kellen Mond, who had constantly been under siege, and he had a lot of time to throw the football against Florida. Basilak, he could have played in the same uniform Sunday that he did Saturday. There wasn't a scuff on any of it. That LSU didn't get to him. And I think it is starting to affect this game in so many ways, the lack of the pass rushers, that at one time was a hallmark of SEC football. They ain't there. And for people who are going to argue about it, my thing is, tell me where they are. Where are they? And if you don't get a pass rush on these guys today, well, I'm just telling you, they're going to drill you. These QBs today, they're going to drill you. Now, again, Georgia has been a little bit of an exception to the rule.
Yes.
Defensively, they play well. Now they're going to get a pretty good test against Alabama's pitch and catch game. Can they get a pass rush on Mac? Because if not, you best take the over if you're a gambler. Because neither defense is going to stop one another. Man, not the way Alabama can juke it up and down the field. But I think it's a part of the SEC that I think we all better get used to. That part is just not there. And every once in a while, you're going to see one of these 17-13 games. But for the most part, it's, you're going to play in the high 20s and 30s and 40s now coming up. And people say, oh, it's Big 12 football. No, it's reality. You aren't paying attention. It's part of college football that now is hit. You know what's going to affect next? The NFL.
Yeah.
And it already has. Look at all these high-scoring games in the NFL today, early on. It's already starting to take an effect. 3 years from now, man, it's going to be real-life Madden football. I talked to a veteran defensive end. He told me he was thinking about retiring in the offseason. I told him, man, if I'm you, I could play another couple of years. He said, why? I said, because tell me a young kid that can beat you out. Today, they on the all-potential team. And potential means you ain't done it. You've done it, man. I'd stay another couple years.
Mike, did you ever, Mike Detillier, LSU insider on the Miller Lite guest line, did you ever think that you would see an LSU team get dominated?
No.
Missouri
never.
had their top, they had their top two wide receivers out, and yet they moved the ball at will against an LSU program that, as you just referenced, signs 4- and 5-star guys.
Yeah. I saw it then, and I saw it then that night. Does Alabama sign 2-star recruits?
Well, that's a good point.
Look what Ole Miss did to them up and down the field. Does Texas A&M or Florida sign 2-star recruits? No. They signing 4- and 5-star guys too. It has hit in this league like it has hit across college football, if you were paying attention. Look, even Big Ten games. Those games now are in the high 20s and 30s. Man, my old pop who's been dead now 6 years, man, he'd love to watch them, 10-7 games, which growing up when I was. But my thing is, man, I didn't like to watch that. That was the games were short. Now they ran the football all the time, but now, they pitching it 40 times a game. And to see Alabama and LSU's defense. Now, here's the difference between LSU and Alabama. They ain't playing good defense, but they're still winning.
Right.
That's the difference. And LSU had a shot to beat Missouri. Come on, that's the most disturbing thing for me about LSU. One, they couldn't stop Missouri's running game.
Right.
The passing game is one thing, but, man, Ed takes a lot of pride in stopping the run. Now, we're going to have him on tonight with us on WWL. I'm sure he's going to be in a good mood, so to speak. Me and A-Bear, we're gonna poke the bear a little bit. Come on, we got to do it. But and he's gonna be okay with it. But he understands he's gonna get a little poke here and there.
Does he join y'all live or on the phone, Mike?
No. We do it from studio now. We can't do anything on remote anymore.
Got it.
But he's on the phone with us. So normally, man, come on. Last year it was like a comedy club. Because the three of us together, ain't nobody want to say nothing about one another, so to speak. What happened on the bayou stayed on the bayou. So and it was when you win, man, it takes away all the ills.
Sure.
But now it's a different story. Totally different story. And you got to weather this storm, so to speak. But I think the thing that disturbs him the most is, one, their inability to stop the run. Missouri was almost averaging that game almost 6 yards a carry. Come on. A lot of it is misdirection. So what you're doing is it's a lot of, the announcer talked about eye candy, and he's absolutely right. That's what it's all about. They throw you a lot of different things, and they run in simple plays, but they want to kind of catch your eyes drifting one way or another, and you get beat. And you got 4 shots inside the 1 yard line. You can't poke it in. My thing is, and I'm going to ask them tonight, do they have a power package where the quarterback gets under center, you got a lead fullback, and you pitch it to your halfback? Or do you quarterback sneak it from a half yard in? What's happening now? We saw it last year even with Joe. He's not under center. He takes the ball out of the shotgun every play. Miles takes the ball shotgun. Come on, you got to put a power package in for situations like that. And Missouri was out 2 of their starting defensive tackles. Now, come on, common sense tell you if you without your 2 starting defensive tackles, you put in a couple plays during the week that you're going to run the football if you need that half yard or 1 yard. Didn't happen. That, I think, is more disturbing than anything else. You couldn't make that 1 yard, and you couldn't stop Missouri's running game. The passing deal, you got shredded, and you need. That's not going to be an easy fix. But I think the inability to stop the run when you want to and need to, and your short yardage game, that is not. It's not going to be too happy about that. But, that all falls back on him. He's got to piece that together. And I think in today's game, you need that. I think that's going to be a situation where you're going to need that deal. And he's got a big fullback in Carter, a big lead fullback there. And the backs he's got, you can't get a half a yard. And you know what? We still be talking about how bad they played defensively, but you'd have a W. Just like what Alabama got. You can complain about Golding and his defense. Come on, do you really think that Pete Golding is in charge of Alabama's defense? Do people really think that? Guess who's his boss?
Right.
And what his wheelhouse is. And it's not like the first time we've seen Alabama's defense kind of get taken to the woodshed. Now, that also belongs to Nick. That's his specialty, his defense. But if you think that Pete Golding, if Nick wasn't happy with Pete, is he still and why he's still a defensive coordinator. There's a reason. He's doing exactly what the boss tell him to do.
Yeah. All right, so we've only got 2 minutes here, Mike. What a game last night. Mike Detillier, WWL Radio, TV New Orleans. Drew ended up making an incredible pass play late in the game. But Lattimore and so many of those guys on defense were special. I think it just comes down to Sean Payton's incredible, and so is Dennis Allen. But give me a minute and a half on the game, Mike.
I was impressed with Emmanuel Sanders. He played big last night. What an acquisition Will Lutz was a few years back. You talk about a clutch kicker. He's just that. Yeah. He was just tremendous. Trey Hendrickson's really played well at defensive end. They spent a first-round pick and they gave up something else, so to speak, for Marcus Davenport. He played okay, but Manus Hendrickson has played well. And we seen a new star in the NFL last night in Justin Herbert. Man, did that young man play well. It's so funny. Reminds me of Manning Camp 2019. Him and I sitting down together talking, and I said, what's the best thing he does and the worst thing he does? He said, man, I throw the short pass real well, and I love to throw the deep ball. He said, what I don't do well is throw that pass from 11 to 20 yards downfield. He said, I'm a little inaccurate on those throws. He said, I'm working on it. That's why I'm here. He said, I want to talk to Peyton and Eli about it. Guess what he did last night? He threw the short pass and the real deep one. Did you see any of them, 11 through 20? He threw 2 of them. But, man, you talk about he got talent, and he ain't playing with the 5 blocks of granite in front of him. Man, he's running for his life. But, man, it was an entertaining football game. The Saints were sluggish in the first half, really played well in the second half to come back to win that game. But, again, the Saints' problems in the secondary are glaring. That mistakes and wide open receivers. You feeling it now. If you don't get a pass rush on these guys today, they just sling it. And even the rookie quarterback, he took the belt out last night and sort of spanked him. But he's limited to what he can do. But, man, what he does well, he does really, really well. I was impressed with Herbert last night, but the Saints found a way to win. That's all that matters.
That's right. Sean Payton does it again. Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans on the Miller Lite guest line. Thanks, Mike. Take care, buddy.
Thank you, bud. Take care.
Well, that was great on LSU and the Saints. Blake, they're going to Gainesville this weekend, and, Florida.
14-point dogs are the Tigers.
Yeah, the Tigers. Florida's a 14-plus favorite. Holy Mary Olzap. Can you imagine if they get beat by 2 scores down in Gainesville, where this thing is going? Straight ahead, more on Mike Leach and what's going on in Starkville. The Out of Bounds Show brought to you by RPT and Rick's Pro Truck, and ricksprotruck.com for your next spray-in bed liner.